my lovelies. So I've given up on the idea that this video is ever gonna be perfect. So we're gonna go with good enough and hope for the best. I wanted to take a minute to answer a question that I have been asked many times over the course of the last few weeks, and that is, what is the difference between tarot cards and oracle cards? But before I dive into that, just a couple of disclaimers really quick. One, I enunciate things funny. I say words funny. You can try if you want to teach me the correct way, but most likely it's already stuck in my head. I say tarot cards and I probably pronounce people's names wrong and whatever. So I just wanted to put that out there. Also, I by no means think that I know everything there is to know about tarot cards or oracle cards. I'm an avid learner. I hope to continue learning my entire life. That said, I do not appreciate when people come in and try to, so if that is your energy, please move on to somebody else's page. Thank you. Tarot cards and oracle cards. Because if anybody looked in my pictures, I have multiple decks of both. I utilize both. I do tend to boast being a tarot reader more often. I feel like it's my specialty. So I might probably talk about tarot more, but like I said, I use both. So we'll talk about oracle cards first because I feel like they're a little bit easier. So oracle cards are often themed or on a specific area of your life. Oh man, my little deck is inside. I also have a spirit animal deck. So I have Moonology, as I just showed, Whispers of Love. So I call this one my love and romance deck. It's kind of like advice for your heart. I have my Starseed deck. So this one's my most precious to me. And then I have my Goddess deck, and this one's really a beautiful deck. So one of the biggest differences that I notice between oracle cards and tarot cards is the language they use and the way in which they're going to draw attention to something. Oracle cards tend to use more what I call fluffy language. They will sugarcoat things. It'll call you out on your stuff or give you guidance, but it'll do it more so in a nice way. Tarot cards tend to be more direct, blunt, to the point, much like me. Maybe that's why I like them. So the other biggest thing that I've noticed is not necessarily true for me because I started with tarot cards, but I've heard this from multiple other witches, spiritual people, intuitives. They'll tell me that they have a hard time connecting to the tarot cards, but they do good with oracle cards. I think oftentimes oracle cards can be a little bit more beginner friendly because they're simpler to use. Most of them have guidebooks. They tell you how to use them. They'll give you ideas for spreads or questions to ask. You pull a card, you read the page, that's about all there is to it. I'm not saying if you're an intuitive reader, you won't sometimes get hits off of cards. You will sometimes get downloads, you will sometimes get messages, but there's not as much translation going on. They're a lot more direct, here's the message, here's the card, here's the page, ta-da! And that's basically all there is to it. So again, I do think that oracle cards tend to be a little bit more beginner friendly. Obviously that depends on your skill or if you already have a knowledge of tarot cards. All right, now let's dive in a little bit more into tarot cards. So this is my very first tarot deck. I bought it when I was just starting out with my witchy journey. I have always been, I've always basically known I was a witch, but was taught that it wasn't real and all of that. And I've always been intuitive. I've always had dreams. I've always been an empath, but I didn't really try magic until about 7 or 8 years ago. Anyways, so one of the first things that I did was bought a tarot deck that called to me, and then I took some courses on Udemy, and of course then I bought more tarot decks and more oracle cards and more tarot decks and more oracle cards. I also have a pirate deck and a little travel deck that are not out here right now, but these are 3 of the ones that I use the most. Definitely tend to favor these 2 a little bit more. They're a little bit nicer and a little easier to work with, and I will explain that in a minute. So, tarot cards, according to Siri, have been around since the 15th century. Tarot cards have a lot of symbolism, and that is the biggest difference between tarot cards and oracle cards. Is tarot cards all should anyways follow the same symbolisms. They should have that carried over. Even if it's a themed deck, they should still have the things that make that card what that card is, so you can see it, so you can read it, so you can know what it means. Of course, they're all going to have their own little flair, and some decks, like the Thoth deck, have even more extra symbolisms that go into them, so it has more than just the traditional tarot card stuff. This deck in particular has like books dedicated to it. I mean, people can spend their lives basically studying this deck and doing readings for it and whatever. I do utilize this deck, however, I wouldn't say I have as much of a strong of a bond to this one, and this one tends to be a little bit feistier. So if you don't want to get called out by the cards, don't get a reading from the Thoth deck. Alright, I'm going to do my best to not shake too much, but the top row is what is called the Major Arcana, or Arcana, whichever way you want to pronounce it. And then the bottom, I have basically one of each suit, so there's 7 of Wands, 7 of Swords, 7 of Cups, and 7 of Pentacles. And each suit, more or less, kind of has a themed area of your life. The Major Arcana can be pretty varied and have other meanings. They're usually kind of the wow factor cards when they're pulled. And some of them have an unfair bad rep. So I'm going to show you a picture that has the star, the moon, and the sun from each of the 3 decks that I've been showing you. So you can see a lot of the similarities, how they're all slightly different, but maybe you'll see some of the symbolism and see what stands out for you. Kind of maybe see what messages you can see in those cards, but more so just so you can see the differences, but also the similarities and how important symbolism truly is to tarot. All right, so let's kind of wrap up the differences between tarot cards and oracle cards. Oracle cards, like I've said, are a lot more straightforward. You do still need to have some intuition. It is still divination, okay? It's not just you pick a card and you read the page. I mean, you kind of could do that, but there should be some guidance going into which card you're picking. And then you might be able to get some intuitive hits. You might download messages from source or spirit or whatever, but mostly it's you look at the card, you look at the page that goes with the card, that's it. So like when I, as a reader, am doing oracle cards for you, there's much less of my interpretation going into it. Again, I will absolutely share if I get any messages from you. I'm just saying I don't get them as often with the oracle cards because, again, like, you know, they're pretty straightforward. You get what you get. The book tells you what it is. It's not up to me to figure out the meaning. Tarot cards, oops, there's much more that goes into them because you have to translate the symbolism. If it's upright or reversed, it can have a different meaning. And then also the questions. I find a lot of times I get varied questions, so then it is my job as the reader to convey to you basically how that card is even answering your question, because sometimes it it can be kind of a jump. It's like, okay, what does this card have to do with what we asked about? But if you think about it, you know, I'm pretty good at outside of the box thinking, or you pay attention to what messages came through, what symbolism stood out. Sometimes I have to basically pick it apart and come up with a message that is not the same as what the book says, or it is a different meaning. And, you know, this book is great. I love this deck. It has a wonderful guidebook, but it still like this little tiny bits of writing. These two decks, same thing. They do have a guidebook, but there's not much to them. It's only like a sentence or two. And obviously with cards that have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, there's much more study that has gone into them. So, you know, it's important to do your own studying. I've done my own studying. You can find little like cheat sheets online of alternative meanings of the cards. But ultimately, I think whatever message is coming to me or your other reader, yourself, if you're doing it at the time, that's the most important, is like what you're first drawn to, what first stands out to you. Hey everyone, so brownie points if you made it this far in the video. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you learned a little bit of something. Hopefully I answered the question of what's the difference between tarot cards and oracle cards adequately without causing more confusion. I am always happy to answer questions, and might do more of these videos if you guys appreciated it. So if there's a topic or something you're interested in, let me know, and maybe I can do another little video about it sometime. So thanks for watching, and yeah, let me know in the comments if I did a decent enough job or if it was terrible and I should never do these again. All right, love you all. Bye.